In the early 1900s, the great and good at the Paris Opera buried an urn full of living voices, gramophone recordings of famous opera stars, to be disinterred after a century. When those urns were opened, mysterious recordings, similar to experiments done by Alexander Graham Bell at the Volta Laboratories in Washington, D.C. in 1881, were discovered. Who made them, and why?
They are plans drawn up by Eric, who became fascinated by cylinder sound recording.
Spooky.
Yeah.
Hésitez seul le monde qui, quand vous tenez pour effacer la tension de la musique qui brûle.
This podcast will investigate the mysterious happenings and turn of the 20th century Paris at one of its most popular cultural institutions, the Paris Opera, now the Palais Garnier. I'm Phil Donan, and with my colleague,
We're going to use research, sound recording playback technology, and good old-fashioned detective work to try to find you the answers. This is the Shattered Podcast.
I'm Phil Donan.
And this week we have back with us our guests from last time.
Dustin Jackson.
And Layla Lim.
Dustin, we're so sorry to hear Danny's indisposed.
Well, it's a hazard of the job. She's very sensitive.
We had some impressive revelations last time, and we have been overwhelmed with comments and speculation.
It's important in the spirit of establishing facts, which we're trying to do with our historical recordings and our insights into actual events from the 19th and early 20th centuries, that we don't allow our imaginations to run away with us.
However, what we heard last week has made us all very excited, thanks to Dustin and his allowing us to hear his digitized graphophone recording from 1897, which purports to be a conversation or an interview with Hossein Ali Khan, a former chief of police of Mazandaran in Persia, present-day Iran.
We're trying to build up a case to link the darogi heard here with the voice captured on the cylinders on impressively prophetic recording equipment buried under the Palais Garnier in 1912.
We think these cylinders were made by a composer named Eric, who was responsible for, among other things, an amazing piece of music called Don Juan Triumphant, and is somehow connected with Christine Daae, an opera singer, and her husband's brother, Count Philippe de Chagny, who disappeared mysteriously in 1881.
So my understanding of the gramophone in my possession is that this Count Philippe didn't just disappear. He was murdered by Eric in his house by the lake, whatever that means.
We have a lot of unanswered questions.
For one, who is the other person in the recording?
Sure, what was his interest in the recordings?
This Eric person was setting up recording horns. Maybe that's what he was looking for?
What recording horns?
And we don't know that the interviewer was from the police. We know that the daroke was ex-police.
No, but what are recording horns?
He wasn't police, though, at least not French police, because, let's call him Dude C, said that the investigators into Count Philippe's death hadn't believed Han.
I know that the recording horns were mentioned in the architectural drawings, that scan that Dustin shared, that were with the note and the graphophone recordings, but I don't understand what this means.
Layla, if we suppose that this Eric guy was involved with the Paris Opera, let's say he even had a house on the lake, whatever that means. If he was trying to set up recording horns, inobtrusively it seems to me, in the very fabric of the Paris Opera...
On all those different levels, the foyer de la danse, the grand foyer, the levels above the stage, and the passages underneath.
To me, it seems to be some kind of surveillance technology.
Albeit surely not very good, not very clear.
Most likely not.
Yeah, but what was the purpose? What was the point?
That is the question.
Okay, I'm not an expert on historical sound recording, but I know my antiques. I know what Edison made and what sold in this time period. How did this Eric guy have the technology to record like this?
And you have to wonder what happened to him. The unnamed interviewer, Dude C as you've called him, he mentioned that Eric was really ugly.
But he also mentioned his beautiful soul.
Yeah. If Eric, whoever he was, actually wrote Don Juan Triumphant, it's a stunning piece of music, well ahead of its time.
I've been listening to this podcast. I've followed it well enough to wonder, what if the interviewer was Gaston Leroux?
Gaston Leroux, you may remember from our conversation with Mr. Simeon Entwistle, the film historian, was a French writer and reporter who supposedly interviewed the Daroguet of Mazandaran in 1909. It seems very likely this refers to Hossein Ali Khan, but as Mr. Entwistle told us, the interviewee insisted upon anonymity. This interview was supposedly the basis for the now lost silent film Das Phantom der Oper, a plausible explanation indeed, especially given, at least according to Mr. Entwistle's synopsis of what is known about the lost film, it has to do with a mysterious being playing tricks on people at the opera, using machinery and technology. We couldn't reach Mr. Entwistle to test this theory on him. The graphophone is dated 1897, and according to Dr. Entwistle, Gaston Leroux interviewed the Daroguet of Mazandaran in 1909.
To me, and I don't know as much about this as the rest of you, but it seems like the person interviewing Hossein Ali Khan sort of knows him, but isn't his friend. There's a familiarity to it, almost a competitiveness.
You have to think logically. And logically, there's a possibility this could be Leroux.
The dates could work for Leroux, who died in 1927. Dustin, do you have any information on the provenance of the graphophone recording?
It was made by the Columbia Phonograph Company, headquartered in Washington, D.C. The business sold phonographs in Maryland and Delaware. I acquired it from an estate sale.
Phil, that note that Layla translated, who do you think wrote it?
Well, now, if I had to hazard a guess, and from the available evidence, I might theorise it was Darius, the servant who was identified on the graphophone.
It therefore seems more likely that he was Hossein Ali Khan's servant rather than Gaston Leroux's.
Look, you believe what you want. I still think it could be Gaston Leroux.
And then there was the curse.
Phil.
Yeah?
I'm sorry, did I wake you?
Oh, I haven't quite dropped off yet, so no, not really. Are you alright?
I was thinking.
Yeah?
About the Das Phantom film.
Yeah, shattered.
About the curse.
The what? Oh, I wouldn't worry about it.
I'm not worried about it.
I mean, it's hardly worth your time.
Don't you think it's a bit of a coincidence that the Rhine thing refers to the music that burns, which is from Don Juan Triumphant, and the interview with that guy, Hans, says that Eric's music was...
I don't believe in curses. Secondly, that music that burns thing, that could refer to anything.
Oh,
And we don't know that Eric, whoever he was, with his weird name and everything, even wrote Don Juan Triumphant.
what do you mean? Is there any doubt?
Well, remember the score in the music library credited it to M. Sheary.
And someone crossed it out and had written Eric.
Please, will you give it a rest?
Don't tell me what to do, Phil.
I'm sorry, just suggesting that you get some sleep. I don't know about you, but I'm shattered.
What?
Shattered. You know, exhausted.
Okay.
This'll keep for another time.
Okay.
You are sleeping, like you're not doing 36 hours awake like you were before.
It's not easy.
Well, you need to try. We care about you.
Who's we?
Me, Alicia, Layla, Dustin, the listeners. You're not good to us without a rested mind, right? Oh, and please don't put this in the podcast.
Sorry, Phil. I couldn't help myself. Next time, we're going to try to trace the police report that Hossein Ali Khan supposedly made after Count Philippe's disappearance. Until then, we think there's plenty here for you to ponder over.
The Shattered podcast is hosted by Nemo and Dr. Phil Donan, with theme music by Katie Seaton. It is produced by Leslie McMurtry and is a lesser of Two Evils production 2022.